Without further ado, my name is Edwin Linares. I'm your instructional designer here in Galveston College, and let's go ahead and get started. So, a couple things I want to go over first. I want to go over the best practices that will deal with today's presentation. So, I'm going to ask very kindly if you could please maintain your camera on just to ensure full participation of today's presentation. Aside from that, please mute your microphones in order to mitigate any sort of disruptions. But there will be a point in time where I will be addressing your questions. And then as far as your questions go, please write down your questions on the message board. So where is the message board? I'm going to go ahead and show you where that's at. So on your screen, it should look something like this. Your screen on the far bottom right should have a small little bubble that you can press, and then whatever questions that you may have throughout the entirety of this presentation, go ahead and plug in your question. And if at some point there are some slides where it will be for questions, and I'll go ahead and answer your questions then. On the far left-hand side, on the bottom, you'll see, and I've already seen some of y'all interacting with the emojis. That's exactly what it's for. If you see something you like, if you see something, you can use emojis. They're pretty fun, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and continue. So the what, the why, and the how. So why do you want these resources? First off, it'll save you some time, and it'll also save you some effort when you're designing your course. Secondly, it's also meant to help you improve your student engagement and the structure that is found within your course. What you'll get today is a hands-on look of the time on task calculator. That's our first tool today. The second way that you'll get this today is through a guided tour of the faculty resource hub that is within Canvas. So how I will plan to model these tools is through live demonstrations, and we collectively will also apply this to real course design. So first tool that we want to address today has to do with the time on task calculator. Now, as faculty, you manage so many responsibilities that are competing for your time. Yes, you're trying to figure out ways where you can revise your assignments. And not only that, not only just with work purposes, you also are trying to balance a life outside of work. So keep in mind that a balanced workload helps improve students' retention and their success. So this time on task calculator is going to ensure that your workload aligns with the credit hours expectations. Now, in this next slide, I have a question for you. And there's no right or wrong answer here. How many hours a week do you believe a student should devote to coursework? There's no right or wrong answer. This is just to kind of get a feel for what you believe. All right, so we're going to go ahead and display these. Okay, we got 1 to 60, some 10s in there, some 12, 20, 8, 6, 18s. Okay, so we got a good variety, a good range of hours. Okay, and this is just to kind of get an idea of where everybody's at. Okay, all right, so let me go ahead and provide you some context. Some of you may already have this context, but for those that are probably new to the college, this is probably going to be very helpful. So as instructors, academic instructors and workforce instructors are guided through certain manuals. The academic side of courses are guided by the Academic Course Guide Manual. For workforce, there is the Workforce Education Course Manual. Now, right now, I'm going to speak strictly on the Academic Course Guide Manual. If you look at the chart below, you'll notice that there is a range of credit hours. For 1 credit hour, when we're speaking about 15-week semesters, right? And I say 15-week because technically the 16th week is for finals. So the way that it's referenced inside the Academic Course Guide Manual is for 15 weeks. So for 1 credit hour in a 15-week semester, 1 credit hour equals 3 hours of engagement. But if we're speaking in regards to 8 weeks, it doubles. So for the entire semester, for a 1 credit hour course, it's 45 hours. Doesn't matter what format it is, 45 hours should be the total engagement time that students should have for a 1 credit hour course. Now, if we move on to 3 credit hours, you'll notice that for a 15-week course, they should be engaged 9 hours every week. For 8 weeks, we now doubled that. So for an entire semester, for a 3 credit hour course, we're looking at roughly around 135 hours of total student engagement. For 4 credit hours, at the end, we're looking at about 180 hours of student engagement. So here's what's going to happen. In the next slide, or the next thing that's coming up, is going to be a live demonstration of a tool that you can use, right? It's an option to help you see if your workload is going to be insufficient, if it's balanced, or if it's too much. So before I move on to that, for workforce education, what I have discovered is that depending on what the course is, what course is being taught, there is a requirement that varies. The total engagement hours varies depending on the course. Now, as we move on, I want to go ahead and show you this tool right here. All right, LSU, Louisiana State University, developed this online tool in order to help their faculty gain a sense of how engaged their students should be or would be within their course. So I'm just going to kind of briefly walk through this, but I'm also going to try to explain this as best as possible. So as we scroll downwards, notice that there's a couple boxes, one for course information, there's one for reading assignments, writing assignments, video podcasts, discussion posts, exams, other assignments that you may have in your course. But here's the one that I really want to emphasize. At the end of all of those boxes, you have an estimate. So depending on where or how your course is structured, you would gain your assignment, you would get your assignments, you would plug them into the calculator and determine how much time students are spending each single week. Once you have that number, you would multiply that by the number of weeks that's in the semester, and you get your final results for engagement hours. So, is there any kind of questions so far about this? You're more than free to hop out of mute to see if you have any questions at all.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you're talking about engagement, you're talking about the time in which they are in class doing assignments, not their study time, though, right?
Okay, that's a really great question, and thank you for asking that. Now, what I mean by engagement, it could mean that if they are in class, that does count towards engagement hours. Yes, whatever time that they're spending outside of class with the coursework that's in Canvas, that also counts towards engagement hours as well. So it doesn't strictly rely on just in-class work. It's also pertaining to class that's found within Canvas. Does that help answer your question?
Kinda, but I mean, so a lot of the time students don't realize how much time they have to put into the studying aspect of that. So, depending on your class, right? But we're
Yes.
workforce, so our classes tend to be a little harder. So that time tends to be more. And I feel like sometimes the students don't understand that. And I wonder if this tool actually will incorporate that.
Okay. So as far as the lab hours that are required by the workforce manual, As far as that portion of things, this tool doesn't necessarily give you that calculation as to how many hours they're putting into those lab hours, the practice hours. This tool here is more pertaining to if you have, which we all have a course on Canvas, if you have some readings that you're posting within your Canvas course that you're trying to get a sense if it's going to be if it's going to require way too much time from your students, this tool here is helping you to see if it's a wise choice or not. So you use this tool in order to give you a reference. It's not necessarily going to calculate everything for you, especially in workforce, which is the sad part. But if you have assignments that pertain to any of these blocks here, reading, writing, discussion posts, then it can give you a reference as to how much time students would be spending in that particular assignment. Does that help?
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're kind of going to shift and we're going to kind of we're going to try to implement some practice with this tool here. And the way it's going to look, if you don't mind, I'm going to come out of full screen and I'm going to shift here. All right. We're going to go ahead and start practicing with this new tool. So I'm going to be providing everybody here with 3 scenario-based questions. I'm going to help you out with the first one, and then the other 2, you're going to kind of work through them yourself, and then we'll kind of see based on the answers what your choice is. So for this particular scenario-based question, I have outlined the different sorts of assignments that somebody could implement within their course. So the question here is determine if the course load is insufficient, balanced, or overloaded for an 8-week course. So for reading, we have 15 pages of textbook, of a textbook, 450 words. There's some new concepts, and it is meant to be understood. So we're going to change the duration of the class to 8 weeks. Scroll down. The number of pages per week is 15. 850 words, some new concepts. We'll leave that alone. So if I didn't include any change to purpose, we'll leave it alone. But for this purpose, we'll put understand. We'll scroll down. The writing assignment here is 16 pages per semester, 250 words, and it'll be a reflection. The genre will be reflection. Since there's nothing to do with drafting, we'll leave that alone. As we scroll down, we have a video lecture of 1 hour per week. We'll scroll down. Well, discussion boards, we have 1 post plus 1 reply. So what we can do here, we'll put 1 post per week. Leave all this alone. There's no changes to that. So we have to adjust manually the time that it'll take because of that 1 reply. So instead of 1 hour, it'll be 1.5. And then lastly, for exams, we have 2 per semester, and we recommend students study approximately 5 hours per exam. So as we scroll down, notice that we get a total per week of student engagement hours of 5.88. So what happens here now, if we take out our calculator and we do some math, for the 8 weeks, we're multiplying the 5 hours times the 8 weeks of the semester, and we get this number, 47. So based on this number, do you believe that this is sufficient or balanced, insufficient, or overloaded? If you could please submit your answer, and then we'll kind of take a look at what the findings are. Our correct answer here is insufficient. Because keep in mind, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide. So our math here was that for every week, they're spending roughly 6 hours. multiply that by the number of hours in that particular semester, you get roughly around 47 hours. But the requirement that is outlined by the academic course guide manual is that it should be somewhere around 135. So it is way below from where it should really be. Mm-hmm. Is there any questions so far? You can definitely hop out of mute if you need to. All right, so I have this particular scenario for you. Okay, so please take the next 3 minutes to kind of work through this. Please use the tool. It's there for you. So I'm intentionally setting this up so that you can get some practice in. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure this is present. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and look at our results here. Okay. Some of y'all said balanced, some insufficient, some overloaded. Okay, so our correct answer here would be overloaded. Overloaded. So let's take a look at the findings. So after kind of doing the calculation, you should have came out with some sort of a calculation for roughly about 19 hours every week of student total engagement. So multiplying that by the number of semesters, by the number of weeks, which is 8, you will get a total of 152 hours. Now, that is overload. So again, we don't want to put on way too much information and content towards the students because they'll feel that pressure, and again, it won't help them and their success. Okay, we got one more scenario based question. So here we go. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at our results. We got 70% balanced, 5% said insufficient, and 25% said overloaded. So our correct answer here is, in fact, this is balanced. Okay. So if you don't mind, do y'all mind providing me with a thumbs up if you feel like you've gained some sort of proficiency with this tool so far? Whether you can do a thumbs up physically or if you want to put a thumbs up with the emoji. All right. Cool, cool. All right. So moving on to our next slide. So with this calculation here, we're looking at roughly 132 total engagement hours for this particular scenario. And that is very close to what is recommended by the academic course guide manual. So with that being said, this is in fact balanced. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our questions. Wasn't much of a question, more of a statement, which is okay. All right. So the next resource that I have for you today has to do with the Faculty Resource Hub. Now, in this resource hub, there's 4 main modules that I would love to expose to you all. So the first module has to deal with Canvas, any kind of support, and ultimately it's here to help you build confidence and to basically help your skills with Canvas. The second module here has to deal with resources that are pertaining to Galveston College. The third module is pertaining to the course designing process. There's a lot of practical tools there. There's templates and there's guides. And then the last module in the resource hub has to deal with building and fostering a community professionally. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this over here. Now, what you are looking at right now is the landing page of the Faculty Resource Hub. If you notice at the far bottom, there's 4 main buttons that will direct you to a particular module. So the first module that we're going to be looking at is Canvas 101. So one of the first things that I would like to share with you all is that our lovely Director of Distance Education, Elvia Segura, has created a co-pilot chat agent that is meant to help you troubleshoot any issues with Canvas. Let me show you what that's all about. So it's the first link at the top of this module, and it'll direct you into a new page. So if you're having any sort of issues, say per se, I had an instructor yesterday reach out to me, and she expressed that when she copied over all of her content, her quizzes were basically blank. The only thing that she had on her quizzes was the title. So basically, one way to kind of troubleshoot that issue is to use this chat agent. So, for example, if I said I copied over my quizzes into my new course, but I cannot see, well, I can't see any of my content. What happened? So from here, it'll start giving you some possible reasons, and basically you can use this in order to give you an understanding of where the issue might have gone wrong. So with that particular professor, it turns out that when she was importing her content into her new course, she didn't unclick the checkbox that was asking her if she wanted to convert her quizzes into new quizzes. So because she didn't uncheck that, basically it transferred everything into a whole new type of quizzes, and everything was scratched away. So once we figured out that issue, everything was resolved. So this chat agent is here to help you with troubleshooting any small issues. All right, and I agree, Floyd. Now, when we go back to the Canvas 101, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of other pages that are right underneath the Canvas chat agent. So I just kind of want to go over the structure of one of these pages really quick. So if you notice, there are some tabs at the top. These are clickable, so you can switch in between different subjects. So the layout for most of these pages is going to consist of the actual video, which comes from Instructure, by the way. And I have also embedded this iframe, or the entire website itself, into the Canvas page. So you don't have to be bouncing back and forth from Instructure and Canvas. If you're not really looking to know anything about Canvas essentials, and you're looking for something more direct, such as quizzes. If you're looking to get information about quizzes, you can search it up right there and then, and it'll direct you straight to that web page. So you don't have to leave from this page to Instructure. My philosophy here is smarter, not harder, right? So if we can mitigate the amount of clicking that you have to do to get to the resource that you need, that's where we want to be. Now, that's as far as Canvas 101. I want to allow you to explore that, but everything that is foundational skills is going to be in Canvas 101. As we move forward to the second module, we have faculty resources. So Respondus Lockdown Browser is set up a little differently. So we got a training video here. We have FAQs, this link that'll take you to frequently asked questions, a practice tip sheet, and also where you can go and download Lockdown Browser. Now, as you continue, notice that there's going to be a lot more resources that are pertaining to most things that we use here in Galveston College. One that was released not long ago was about early alerts. So what I've done is I've gotten that video and I've embedded it into the page. So if you're looking to have more information about how to use early alerts, this is your place to go. Now, faculty resources, we're going to move on to course design. So this particular module is going to contain a lot of resources that are going to help you with designing the course in your way, of course, right? So ultimately, what I've done is I've already put the time on task calculator here. So if you ever need to access that, that's going to be there. I've also built a reference sheet for student engagement hours. So if you ever need to need a reference to see how many hours students should be spending in course material, this is the place where you want to get that reference sheet at. Now, one of the couple other things too. It wasn't long ago when there was a staff professional development where me and Kara were showcasing the Excel and also the Risen framework. Now, what the Risen framework is, it's basically a guide to help you intentionally structure prompting. Most times when the what most people think is that if you plug in a question, a basic question at that, you'll get the answer that you're looking for. But AI doesn't think the same way we do. So we have to be a lot more intentional about how we're writing out our prompts. So this guide is built in order to help you effectively and strategically prompt AI so that you get the exact result that you would like. Now, as we make our way back into this specific module, there's a lot more resources here for y'all. I don't know if y'all have ever heard about the Universal Design for Learning, but it basically provides you a guide on how you can implement different strategies in your course, right? And so this is a checklist to kind of help you see what you could do that might also help improve student engagement. And just a little tip, you don't want to start off by implementing all of these things. You just want to start small and then work your way, see what works for you and what doesn't. All right, so I would encourage everybody to please take a look at these resources in course design because these are there to help you. And ultimately, by helping yourself, you're also helping your students. Lastly, the fourth module here is built in order to help create a community within Galveston College. So there is one last thing before the end of this presentation that I would love for you all to participate on. So I have added a page which I have called Glow and Grow. If you don't see it on your face right now, what I would ask is if you could please refresh your page so that way you're able to see this first link. When you click on this page, notice that this is going to be a Padlet. So what I'm asking from everyone here is it's basically to pause and reflect. I would love for everybody to take a moment and to contribute to this Padlet. So what is one thing that you feel that went really, really well this year, 2025? What is one thing that went really well for you? And then, aside from the glow, could you please also write a grow? What is one area that you feel that you'd like to improve on or to even develop for this next upcoming year, 2026? This is very important to us as instructors because, you know, life is moving so quickly and we don't often take the time to pause and reflect. And, you know, with this break coming up, most of us will even take advantage of that time to try and restructure our courses or assignments or quizzes. We don't necessarily take that full break. So what I'm asking is for everybody to please contribute to this Padlet. Awesome. So by the way, if you look at the far right here, you can click on this button to add your post. I would like to kindly ask everybody if you could add your name, and you don't have to add like what you teach or nothing like that. And then just write something fantastic, right? So you're one glow and one grow. And this concludes our presentation today. So before I end this meeting, I'd like to say thank you all very much. I know you've all been working really hard this school year. I know that this shift from 16 weeks to 8 weeks has been very, very challenging. I know the struggle myself, being that I was in the student side just a couple months ago. So, as instructors, I want to say I applaud you all because y'all are going through a very huge transition and onto bigger and better things. So from here, we all grow, and I look forward to what you all will do for this upcoming year.